Hold on to your toques, Canada, because things are about to get interesting. Remember those sleek, futuristic Teslas you were eyeing? Well, they might soon be about as affordable as a pet polar bear. Why? Because the new Democratic Party, Canada's left-leaning political party, has a plan. A bold plan. Some might even say, a batshit crazy plan. They want to slap a 100% tariff on imported electric vehicles like Tesla. That's right, double the price. Think of it as a Buy Canadian campaign on steroids. This isn't just some fringe idea, folks. It's a full-blown political hot potato, and it has the potential to send shockwaves through the entire auto industry. Tesla, the darling of the EV world, could find itself in a real pickle. The US, Canada's biggest trading partner, might not take this lying down. And Canadian consumers? Well, let's just say they might want to hold off on that Tesla Cybertruck pre-order for now. So buckle up, buttercups, because we're about to dive deep into the wacky world of Canadian politics, trade wars, and the future of electric vehicles. It's going to be a wild ride. Now, before we start throwing around accusations of economic sabotage, let's try to understand the NDP's logic here. Their argument is pretty straightforward. They want to create jobs and boost the Canadian economy. And how do they propose to do that? By making Canada a global leader in electric vehicle manufacturing, of course. The NDP argues that slapping a hefty tariff on imported EVs will force Tesla and other foreign automakers to set up shop in Canada. This, they claim, will create thousands of high-paying manufacturing jobs and give the Canadian economy a much-needed shot in the arm. It's like a classic protectionist move, but with a green twist. But it's not just about jobs. The NDP also sees this as an opportunity to make Canada a key player in the global EV supply chain, particularly when it comes to sourcing and processing the raw materials needed for batteries. Think lithium, cobalt, nickel, all those fun things that make your Tesla go vroom. They envision a future where Canada isn't just a resource exporter but a global hub for clean energy technology. Ambitious? Sure. But is it realistic? Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say, the Tesla in the garage. How will this proposed tariff actually affect the company that's become synonymous with electric vehicles? Well, to put it bluntly, it could be a real kick in the battery pack. You see, Tesla doesn't currently manufacture any cars in Canada. That means every single Tesla sold in the Great White North is imported, mostly from the US. So if this tariff becomes a reality, get ready for a serious case of sticker shock. We're talking about Tesla prices potentially doubling overnight. Remember that Model 3 you were saving up for? Yeah, you might want to start looking at used Toyota Camrys instead. So, what's Tesla to do? Well, they've got a few options. They could try to weather the storm and absorb the cost of the tariff, but that would seriously eat into their profits. They could try to negotiate with the Canadian government, but that might involve making concessions they're not willing to make. Or, and this is the interesting part, they could decide to build a factory in Canada after all. Now, wouldn't that be a plot twist? Hold on to your maple syrup, folks, because things are about to get even more interesting. This isn't just a domestic issue for Canada. Oh no, this has the potential to turn into a full-blown international incident, with the US caught squarely in the crosshairs. Remember the whole trade war thing between the US and Canada a few years back? Yeah, nobody wants to go through that again. But this tariff situation could be the spark that ignites the powder keg. The US auto industry, already feeling the heat from Tesla's rise, isn't going to take this lying down. They'll be putting pressure on the US government to retaliate, and nobody knows how far things could escalate. We could see tit-for-tat tariffs on Canadian exports like lumber, seafood, or even, dare I say it, maple syrup. The whole thing could spiral out of control, leaving everyone worse off. And let's not forget about the integrated nature of the North American auto industry. A trade war would disrupt supply chains, hurt businesses on both sides of the border, and ultimately cost consumers more. So, yeah, nobody wins in a trade war, except maybe the lawyers who get to argue about it all. Section 5. The Butterfly Effect. Global Automakers brace for impact. This whole Canadian tariff saga isn't just a North American affair. Oh no, this thing has the potential to send ripples throughout the entire global auto industry, like a Justin Bieber concert at a retirement home. You see, other countries are watching the situation very closely. If Canada, a country known for its politeness and love of ice hockey, can slap a 100% tariff on imported EVs, what's stopping other countries from doing the same? We could see a domino effect with protectionist measures popping up all over the place, like dandelions after a spring rain. This kind of protectionism would be a disaster for the global economy, and it would seriously hinder the transition to electric vehicles. Automakers need a predictable and stable global trading environment to invest in new technologies and bring down the cost of EVs. A trade war, on the other hand, would create uncertainty, stifle innovation, and ultimately leave consumers with fewer choices and higher prices. Section 6. The Canadian Consumer's Dilemma: to buy or not to buy. Okay, let's bring this back down to earth for a second and talk about the little guy, the average Canadian just trying to navigate this electrified minefield. What does this proposed tariff mean for them? Well, in a nutshell, it means their dream of owning an electric vehicle just got a whole lot more expensive, or at least a whole lot more Canadian. If this tariff becomes a reality, get ready for some serious sticker shock at the Tesla dealership. That Model 3 that was once within reach might suddenly seem as attainable as a pet unicorn. And it's not just Tesla, other imported EVs like those fancy European ones would also see price hikes. So what's a green-minded Canadian to do? Well, they could bite the bullet and pay the inflated price for an imported EV, supporting their local economy but potentially depleting their bank accounts. They could opt for a cheaper, gas-guzzling alternative, which might be easier on the wallet but not so much on the environment. Or they could hold out hope that this whole tariff thing blows over like a prairie blizzard in July. The choices are tough, and the stakes are high. Section 7. Detroit's Canadian Gambit: a second chance at EV dominance. While Tesla might be sweating bullets over this Canadian tariff, there are some other players in the auto industry who are quietly rubbing their hands together, seeing this as an opportunity to regain some lost ground. I'm talking about those old-school Detroit automakers, the ones who once ruled the Canadian roads with their gas-guzzling behemoths. You see, companies like GM, Ford, and Stellantis have been playing catch-up in the EV game for years, watching as Tesla ran away with the electric crown. But this Canadian tariff could be the break they've been waiting for. They've all made big commitments to invest in EV production in Canada, lured by government incentives and a desire to tap into the Canadian market. Now, with Tesla potentially priced out of the market, these Detroit automakers see a golden opportunity to swoop in and win over Canadian consumers with their own electric offerings. They're hoping that Canadians will choose a made-in-Canada electric truck or SUV over a tariff-laden Tesla. It's a bold strategy, but hey, stranger things have happened in the auto industry. Section 8. The China Syndrome: navigating the geopolitical minefield. This Canadian EV tariff saga isn't just about economics and trade wars. Oh no, it gets even more complicated when you factor in the geopolitical dimension, specifically Canada's increasingly complex relationship with China. You see, China is a major player in the global EV supply chain, particularly when it comes to battery production. Many of the raw materials needed for EV batteries like lithium and cobalt are sourced from China or processed there. This has made some in Canada, including the NDP, a little uneasy. The NDP has been vocal about its concerns over relying on China for critical EV components, citing human rights issues and environmental concerns. They argue that Canada should focus on developing its own domestic supply chain, even if it means higher costs in the short term. This adds another layer of complexity to the EV tariff debate, as it forces Canada to balance its economic interests with its geopolitical concerns. Section 9. The Endgame: what's next for Tesla and Canada's EV ambition? So, here we are at the end of our wild ride through the Canadian EV tariff saga. What have we learned? Well, for starters, that Canadian politics can be just as unpredictable and entertaining as a hockey game, especially when you throw in billions of dollars and the future of the auto industry. Right now, this 100% tariff on imported EVs is just a proposal, a political hot potato being tossed around in the halls of Parliament, but it has the potential to upend the Canadian auto market, spark a trade war with the US, and reshape the global EV landscape. Will Tesla blink and build a factory in Canada? Will the US retaliate with tariffs of its own? Will Canadian consumers be forced to choose between their wallets and the environment? Only time will tell how this will all play out. One thing's for sure: the future of electric vehicles in Canada and perhaps the world is hanging in the balance. Stay tuned, folks. This is one show you won't want to miss.